Blog Talk Radio.
Best-selling and award-winning author of true crime and crime fiction, Yvonne Mason is back with a brand new book, The Pink Canary, a book that delves into the life of a drag queen and a marvelous whodunit. You can find this and all of Yvonne's other works on Amazon.com or find Yvonne Mason on Facebook and Twitter.
You're gonna kill me.
Buy your copy of Pink Canary now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is Thursday night. This is Off the Chain. I am your host, Yvonne Mason. And, of course, that was a piece of shameless promotion. And the gentleman that does my ads for me happens to be my guest tonight, Mr. Christopher Dunham. And I can't wait to get y'all in on this because this man is absolutely fantastic. But just a little bit of shameless promotion. That was the ad for Pink Canary, and it involves a private detective who is a drag queen who owns her own club down in Key West, and she and a few other people solve a murder. So go and pick it up. My guest tonight, Chris Dunham, he and I've known each other for, God, it seems like forever. He's also known as Odd Man, and he has almost a decade in Internet broadcasting, and there is very little that he does not know about tech, promotion, and broadcasting for the masses. He spent the better part of a decade honing his craft, starting out as simply an on-air personality, and then growing his skill set and the ability until he took over the network he was originally broadcasting through. He revamped the network, changed the name and lineup until finding the best possible version for his audience. And I'm going to tell you, if you haven't listened to his show, you are in for a treat. The man is totally insane, just one of the many reasons that I love him so much. So, without further ado, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, but I wouldn't classify myself as a gentleman. I can fake it real well, but...
You are a gentleman.
I try at times.
You are.
I remember to open the door every so often for my wife.
Well, see, you're an absolute gentleman. So tell the folks about our history.
Oh, man. Wow. Yeah, it really does feel like we've known each other for a lifetime because, I mean, I'm thinking it's going on 7 years. You came on not too long after I took over the network.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember exactly. I don't actually remember how we ended up finding each other, but I know we did.
I don't either, because it was that we just were one day, which is odd.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I wish I could remember specifics, but I'm going to blame the Internet. I know the Internet is to blame for this one.
You're probably right. Because we
had...
I don't even remember how we met.
No, I don't. I think we had a mutual friend somewhere along the way, and something. I know it was. I was looking for sponsors, and I wanted a large smattering of different types. You know, I was primarily focused on independent small businesses within the state that I lived in at the time, which was Michigan. I ended up meeting you, and we got talking, and I kind of like. You're the only out-of-state sponsor that I was willing to take on because I enjoyed talking to you. I enjoyed your writing style, and you were just so interesting that I couldn't pass it up. I had to be working with you in some way or another. And what was great is, you know, you saw value and promise and you know, everything else within me. That you took a chance, and I'm glad you did.
And wham, we've been together as friends all this time. And ladies and gentlemen, for whatever reason, this thing's going to go dark in about 10 minutes. I don't know why it's screwed up. But what I'm going to do, Chris, when it does, we'll set up another show and take back up right behind it if I can set it right back up. I don't know what happened.
I blame the internet.
That's a good idea. But Chris and I don't always agree on things, especially in the political realm, but it doesn't matter because
the older I get, I start to agree with you more.
But we always listen to each other. And when we have a debate or have a conversation, it makes me feel good. And I don't think I've ever told you that, but it makes me feel good inside because you allow me to express my opinions, my thoughts, my differences, and we don't wind up screaming and yelling at each other like two banshees or two children. And you don't know how much I appreciate that.
Well, we learned fairly quickly with each other that, that it's always best to just agree to disagree because, I see where you're coming from and I know where you're coming from and I understand it. And even though I see and know and understand, the fact that I don't agree with it, that doesn't really mean anything because, there's plenty of people out there that don't agree with me and, if they're open-minded enough to be like, all right, well, I don't agree with you, but you're still good people, then that's all that matters. And there's a real shortage of good people in the world.
And I don't understand what happened when people allow their differences of opinions to get in between friendships because, to me, friendships are more important than my opinion. If my opinion hurts you as a friend, if my opinion hurts you as a friend, then I'll keep it to myself because you have more value to me than my stating my opinion.
Well, and to be honest, the whole damn world takes itself too seriously anyways. And, I mean, your beliefs are your beliefs, but a lot of people get mixed up in their beliefs being who they are. And who you are is a completely different person sometimes than what your beliefs are.
That's true.
I mean, they do kind of shape who you are, but you can believe something and be completely different. Okay, case in point, I've known highly religious people who, go to church every Sunday and live as close to the good book as they possibly can, but yet they're still willing to accept other people's differences, like with homosexuals or anything like that. They don't necessarily hold it against the person, but even though their belief structure would have you believe they would.
And I think sometimes people make assumptions about other people before they know the person. My mother always told me, Yvonne, love the sinner and hate the sin. And it took me a long time to understand that. It's okay for me to love someone that does wrong. I just don't have to like what they do.
Right. And you also have to understand, too, that it's a perspective issue. What's wrong to you may not necessarily be wrong to them. And once you grasp that concept and you understand that, okay, this may not be right for you and this may not be morally right in your book, just because it's not morally right in your book doesn't mean you get to tell other people what they can and can't do. It's the same argument that I've always used when talking to my, Second Amendment friends. I fully support the Second Amendment. I may not necessarily be a big enthusiast of guns for myself, but just because I don't like it doesn't mean I have any right to tell them they can't have them. And if I don't like it, I'm not going to own it. You see the image that floats around on Facebook a lot. Don't like a gun, don't own one. Don't like gay marriage, don't get one. It's simple. Just because
you don't like TV, don't buy one.
Right. It's simple. If it's not for you, fine. But don't try to hold anyone else back just because it's not for you.
Let's go back a little bit when you started the show. How did you get into doing what you do?
Well, I've told the story a couple of times, and I've been trying to refine it to get it good and short. Back in the days of MySpace, MySpace. Man, I feel like I'm an old person yelling at a kid to get off my lawn. But anyways, back in the days of MySpace, there was a MySpace blog that I commented on. And this person used their blog to fuel the show that they were doing. And this was back before anybody really knew what a podcast was or anything like that. You know, podcasts have become this big thing in everybody's lives, but, you know, a lot of people seem to forget that, you know, it's not that old. Podcasts aren't even old enough to drink yet, you know. It's But I would comment on her blog, and she would read comments on the air, and she always got a great response whenever I commented and she read it, because it fueled other people's need to sound off, essentially. If I came in and commented on a given topic, she was guaranteed to have 20 comments after mine based on what I said. And it went on like that for probably a good 3-4 months, and her husband ended up messaging me and saying, hey, have you ever thought about doing your own show? And I said, well, yes, sort of. You know, I had 2 career choices in mind when I left high school. One of them was to get into radio, and the other one was to be a mortician. Opposite ends of the spectrum. But, you know, life happened, and I had to go out and get a real job and do all this stuff, so I didn't get to go to school or learn anything. And he was like, well, I can teach you how to do some stuff, you know, and you can learn from there and tinker and, you know, get everything right for yourself. So, you know, after I think about 2 months of prep and getting everything ready, I did the very first recorded version of what was then called Mad World. You know, it was, oh God, it sounds horrible. Every so often I'll go back and listen to it, and it's rough. It sounds so bad. And the very first episode, the only thing I could think to do is talk about, like, old TV shows, like cartoons and toys and stuff. And, you know, the first episode was uploaded on April 1st of 2007. So we're closing in on April 1st of 2017, which would be 10 years for me. But, I mean, that's where it all started. I think the first season had 5 episodes in it. And then I noticed that I wasn't happy with the podcast version of it. I wanted to be able to go live and do things. So I started pressuring the guy that owned the network, like, hey, can we do this? Is it possible? And he said, yeah, it is. It's going to take some work. And so I wrote him the whole way through, and about halfway through the second season of Mad World, we were able to do the show live, which was phenomenal. And he thanked me for pressing on him to get him to do it, because he and his wife started using the live format as well, and it started working better for them. When they brought me onto the network, their ratings jumped from, I think they were pulling in about 200-300 a month, and then I started broadcasting, and they jumped up to 2,000 or 3,000 a month.
Wow.
Through their network. Because I was unfiltered. I didn't care. You know, like, I cared for what I was doing, but I didn't care necessarily about what came out of my mouth. I was just in it to have a good time. And then, you know, life happens and certain things, and, you know, the wife started getting jealous of the ratings that I was pulling, and they had their problems, and, you know, they ended up splitting up. And, you know, a few years later, the owner had come to me and said, look, you know, I'm in a bind. You know, I've gotten myself into a little bit of trouble, and I don't know if I can keep the network up. So there's 2 options on the table. You can either take over the network and continue doing your show, or I can shut the network down and you can figure out a way to do it other ways. And I figured, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, give me the keys and let me see what I can do with it.
If for someone, what we're going to do, Chris, instead of hanging up, we're just going to keep going, and then when this thing goes up in the archives, I'm going to pull it down and then put up the whole show. So we'll just keep going till 9 o'clock and just keep playing with this thing. And if someone came to you and said, I want to do this, what would your advice be to them?
Don't.
Why?
because it's like okay, so if you really are into it and like you're really coming to me and asking, what does it take to do this? My first response would be don't, just because it's funny and most people don't expect it. But it's an addiction. It's a drug. It becomes this thing you have to do really quickly. It's not so much a thing that you want to do. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to do it. But it becomes this thing that you have to do. For me, I've told you this numerous times that doing the show is like therapy for me. It's my pressure release valve. Once a week I can throw open my connection, and for 3 hours I can be funny and as horrible as I want to be, and nobody can say boo to me about it.
And people, strangely enough, appreciate it because it's probably some of the very same things they would like to say, but they're afraid to.
Mhm. No, I've often been told I say the things that everybody else doesn't have the guts to say, or the brains to say it, one of the two. But I've had a bunch of people over the years. I mean, you got to figure 10 years. I've touched a lot of lives, and I've had a bunch of people come to me and say, "Hey, man, I want to do this. What does it take?" One of those was someone you had on the show the other night, CJ. The whole reason that CJ is in broadcasting and doing the podcast thing is, directly responsible for his meeting me. He liked what I was doing and wanted to learn how to do it. I was the one that, after I took over the network, I bought him his first podcasting set. I gave him his mixer and his mic and went out to where he was living at the time and showed him how to set everything up and how to run everything. There was a high school kid a few years ago, too, that got in contact with me and was like, "Hey, I think I kind of want to do this. I'm interested in music mostly, but I kind of dig, the radio thing, too." He went to Plymouth Canton High School, and Plymouth Canton High School in Michigan, they had a class or a program or something where they were on an AM radio station, and he hosted a show on there, but he felt so restricted and everything that he couldn't really let loose. And I gifted him one of my old mixers and said, "Here, this is what I got to give you. Go forth and see what you can do with it."
If you had your time to go over, would you take that path again?
Oh yeah, totally. But that's the same answer that I would give for anything. Like, of all the trouble and stuff that I've gotten into in my life, of all the bad experiences and everything that I've had, if you were to ask me would I do it all over, yes, because all of that, all the bad, mixed all the bad with the minimal bits of good in between, that's what made me who I am, and I'm pretty okay with who I am. I don't think a lot of people can say that. I don't think a lot of people can honestly say, "You know what, I like me, I like who I am," and honestly mean it. But if I went back and changed anything, everything changes.
And that's true, because we have to learn to accept ourselves, warts and all, in order to be who we are, and everything that we do in our life, good, bad, or indifferent, helps mold us into who we become. Now, just because something bad happened in our life, that doesn't define who we are. It was just a defining moment, and we have to take as much good out of it as we can and add it to our quiver. But I agree with you. I've had the same question presented to me. If you could change anything in your life, what would it be? I don't think I would, simply because I don't think I would be where I am now, and I love where I am now. I love what I'm doing.
Right. Well, and Ollie and I have talked, too, and talked about my past and everything. And there's a lot of grim and dark stuff in my past. There was no fault of my own. It was just my upbringing. But what I always found interesting is that despite all of that, that grim and dark stuff that was in my past, I still turned out to be a fairly decent human being, or at least I try to be. And I could have definitely gone another way. It definitely could have had its effect. If you're in you write true crime and true crime fiction and stuff like that. So, I mean, how a lot of the bad people end up getting their start. It's a very rocky, tumultuous childhood that they, let consume them. Well, I went through a lot of the same stuff that any, serial killer would have in their past, but for some reason I went the other way. I could have very easily been one of the people you write about.
But I think that you basically have a good soul and a good heart, and that's what makes you different. Any of us can become a sociopath on any given day, but you have a good moral compass about you. You have a sense of right and wrong and a sense of decency, whereas the ones that I write about, I don't think they have a conscience. You do. And that's why
Go ahead.
Go ahead, baby. I was just going to say,
I'm a firm believer.
Go ahead.
I'm a firm believer in the line that was in the Batman comics. I think it was the Joker that said it, is that we're all one bad day away from becoming like the Joker. And I'm a firm believer in that. We are. If it came down to it, let's put it this way. If there was some bad person that came into my life and harmed my wife, I would immediately stop being that nice, gentle person that everyone sees me as at times and completely go the other way and would not stop until vengeance was mine. And I wouldn't care about the consequences. I would, go after him and then GTA it up until the cops took me out. But it's like I said, it's a matter of being one bad day away from going a different way.
And I understand that because Ian Bush took the microphone one night and he interviewed me, and he asked me, he said, "What are you afraid of?" And I said, "Well, Ian, let's see. I've been raped. I've had a gun taken to my head. I was beaten for 18 years. I've worked for shit-assy bosses. I've hunted bad guys." I said, "I think the only thing that I'm afraid of is hurting somebody that goes after my family, especially my husband who is disabled." I said, "I would kill somebody for trying to hurt him." So that, like you, I'm one bad day away from being the Joker.
Yep. I'm not even afraid of it. The only reason that I could even say that I'm afraid is I'm afraid for the person who pushes me that far. True.
I think I agree with you on that, because I would lose, like you, I think I would lose all sense of common sense and morality, because I don't handle someone hurting someone who cannot defend themselves. I don't handle that well at all.
Right, and I wouldn't even say that I'd lose it. I would just put it in a box somewhere. I'd remember where I left it. I just wouldn't be interested in trying to pick it back up.
There you go. So that brings me to your current show. Are you still running it?
Yeah, we're kind of on break at the moment just because we're trying to do a few things with the same room that I use as my studio. And it's been taking a little bit longer than we had hoped, but it shouldn't be too much longer now before I'm able to broadcast and record and do everything that I'm supposed to do again. It's just life gets in the way, and, a project that should take like a week ends up taking a month because of this, that, or the other.
Life gets in the way, my friend.
Yes, often.
All right. Let's talk about voiceovers and ads, because I have to tell you, one night I ran the Mad Hatter ad, and I had a guest on my show. And and she told me, she says, "Yvonne, as soon as we get off of here tonight, I'm going and buying that book. All from your ad."
The Mad Hatter ad is no longer my favorite.
It isn't?
Nope. I like the one that I did for the collection of short stories now more.
I like that one too. That's a cool ad. I play that one a lot.
It's better.
I like it because I was able to put an effect on with my mixer, and I've learned something with doing voiceover and stuff like that. There are certain triggers that allow you to be different, to be outside of yourself. There's a character I do that my wife hates and my dog hates. His name is Rooster. And
Don't do
no,
it.
I won't, I promise. But Rooster, when I slip into Rooster, it's like putting on a pair of comfortable old shoes. And it just allows me to let loose and have fun with it. And the ad for your short story collection, Welcome to My Nightmare, that voice, that very very bassy and evil sounding voice, just allowed me to get into this character that I didn't even know existed, really,
I did.
and have fun with it.
Well, it's a neat ad. People ask me all the time where I get my ads done. And, of course, I say, my friend Chris Dunham. And every time you do an ad and I play it before the show, you always get those kudos because I am so proud of all of those ads. And every time I hear the Mad Hatter, I just giggle inside because I can see the Hatter running through the streets of London.
I did a lot of work with creating a sound bed or a soundscape for that one. You know, trying to get the feel of the time period that book took place in. I mean, you can do an ad for a book like that and just do it straight. And hey, Yvonne Mason has a new book out, Mad Hatter. But like that, just it doesn't. There's no personality to it. There's
right.
Yeah, there's no thumbprint on that given work of mine if I were to have done it that way. And like Holly just said, you have to bring these commercials to life. These books have a life of their own as well, and each commercial should reflect that perceived life that the book has.
And I agree with you because you get the feel of the carriage wheels and the cobblestones and the foggy night and the eeriness of Whitechapel, because at times in Whitechapel the fog is so thick it's like pea soup. You can't see literally. You can get lost, and you live there. You can wind up in the Thames River because you don't know where you're going. And you put that.
I was just going to say, because the book takes place in a time period, in an era that has always been fascinating to me. It takes place in the time period of Jack the Ripper, and Jack the Ripper and a lot of history's famous serial killers and homicidal maniacs have always been an interest of mine. I felt that the commercial needed to reflect the love that I have for that time period as well.
Well, you did an absolute magnificent job, and what is interesting, what makes it even more interesting, is as the girl that bought the book and she read the book, there are two parallel stories in that book, because it is the time of the Ripper. And so both of the stories run parallel, but the Ripper story sort of weaves in and out of the main story. And you, I don't know how you did it, but you got it perfectly.
I think the other thing that I pride myself on, too, when it comes to making the ads, whether it's for you or for anyone else, is I have a really fast turnaround. It's not like, okay, you tell me about it, and 3 months later you finally have the commercial. I have what I like to consider an amazing turnaround. I mean,
2 days.
yeah, it's anywhere between 2 to 3 days if nothing gets in the way, and the longest usually it's ever taken is about a week, and that's usually because I'm a perfectionist and I want to get it right.
Or I listen to it 25 times and harp on it.
Yeah, like that's what she did with the Mad Hatter ad. Is Ollie listened to it and she's like, it's not quite right. There's something missing. And so I would go back into it and start tinkering with it. And I think the Mad Hatter ad took me 2 days total.
It took you 2 days, and we sat for about 6 hours one day just trying to get the sound effects alone right.
Yeah.
So, but it was perfect. It fit the book perfectly, and every time I play it, but when the show starts up and I play it, I giggle to myself because the Mad Hatter was one of the most fun books that I've ever written, even though it took me 4 years to write it. Not just write it, but to research it and put it all together. But it was a fun book to write, and the ad just brings that out because it literally says, go and get this book because if you don't, you're going to be sorry. And the Pink Canary was fun, too.
Yeah. Well, and all of the ads that I've done for you have been fun in and of their own way. You know, one of the ones that I was happiest to make for you was the story about your brother, and that's
yes.
one of the newer ones that I've done.
Yes. That ad, in fact, you know what I'm going to do? Since we're talking about it, I think I've got it here. Hold on, let me find it. Because
you should. I know I mailed them to you.
Yep, it's here. This ad, I can't explain how it makes me feel. It makes me feel, I want to say warm, but that's not really the word I need either. Help me figure out the word as soon as we play it.
Every author has that one story that hits close to home for them. This is Yvonne Mason's.
This book is very personal to me.
The 50s has been idealized as a time of prosperity and growth for some. Those with mental and physical challenges often faced scorn and ridicule, and were destined to be left in so-called hospitals to wither and die. Dreamcatcher, Failure Was Never an Option, is the uplifting story of a man named Stan and his family's courage to defy the odds and succeed in an era where no merit was seen in the challenged.
It is the true story of my brother who was mentally and physically challenged. It is because of my brother Stan that I am a successful author.
Dreamcatcher, Failure Was Never an Option is available through Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com now.
Even now,
I think the word you're looking for is lifted.
Yes. I have chill bumps. Every time I listen to that ad, I get chill bumps because I feel like I'm on the outside of myself listening about someone else's book, and I want to go get it and read it.
Well, and see, that's what I wanted to try and do with that ad. Is that's the first time in the many ads that we've done together. That's the first time that I specifically made sure that you were a part of the ad. Like, the ads have always been about your works, but that one specifically, I had an idea and a thought process of how I wanted it to go, and I wanted your voice within the commercial for that one because I thought it gave it a larger sense of importance or a more sense of trying to ground it in reality. You know, it was a personal story. It's your story, essentially. So in my head, it only made sense to have your voice within the commercial as well.
Well, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ad. All of your ads that you do for me, I'm going to tell you what, this is what you need to be doing for a living.
Well, that'd be great, except for the fact that there aren't a lot of people that are willing to hire people that don't have any background or piece of paper saying that they can do it. I've tried, but unfortunately, it hasn't panned out.
But I've got the proof in the pudding. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Just because you got a piece of
but
paper doesn't mean that you can do it.
Doesn't mean much.
But it should, because
it should. No, totally.
Just because you've got a piece of paper behind your name doesn't mean that you're, not you personally, but doesn't mean that that person is good at what they do. It just means they've gone to school and gotten a degree in it. Yours is a natural persona. When you're doing an ad for someone, you become that person, that character, that you become that persona. You're believable. You make somebody want to go out and get whatever it is you're doing the ad for.
Well, and growing up, I mean, advertising is everywhere. It's in our radios, it's on our TVs, it's in our magazines, it's on our morning commute to work. For Christ's sakes, I mean, we're advertised at every single moment of every single day, almost. I mean, even so much as if you're drinking a can of pop, you're being advertised to because the can of pop is emblazoned with the logo and the catchphrase of whatever it is. And so, I mean, I wanted, when I started doing these, I wanted the commercials that I make to stand out. I want them to not be that typical, easily ignored item that you're going to hear. I've done commercials for comic shops and haunted attractions and books for yourself, like yours. I've done ads for T-shirt companies and software companies and everything else, and I've always tried to get the personality of the product that I'm trying to push, but also get my own personality in there, because you're not going to meet another person like me. And I know it's easy to say that because, I mean, that's the case. Everyone is an individual, but, I mean, you're literally not going to meet very many people out there like me, that think like I do, that have the same kind of twisted sense of humor and can tap into the twisted sense of humor within everyone else. And I've always tried to bring that to the table. It's how I stand out with what I do.
Well, and it's like you're sitting next to me and we're discussing how we want it to come across. Because, like you, in my mind, I had an idea of how I thought it should sound. I didn't even have to tell you. You knew, because it was perfect. All of my ads have been perfect. I just said, here, go work your magic. And it was like you were inside of my head. And that is not just a talent, Chris. That's an ability that most people don't have. It's creepy, but you've been in my head a long time. But my book cover designer's that way. I just say, here's a synopsis. Go work your magic. And I don't even have to tell her how I want it to look. It's like she knows. And it's the same thing with you. I don't have to tell you, well, I want it to sound this way. I kind of want it to sound this way. You know. And you pull it off, and it's beautiful.
What all I ever really end up, contacting you for is, like, I'll get the synopsis from you for whatever given book we're working on. And, like, I'll take it and pad it out so it's less synopsis-y and more radio or commercial copy. And, like, I might run ideas by you. Like, here's what I'm thinking, or I may end up doing, like, 2 or 3 of them, and saying, here, which one do you like best? But, I mean, ultimately, I don't want to have to bother my, for lack of a better word, client, with a lot of excess noise. Your job is to write the books. My job is to make the books sound as good as they are.
And you do an excellent job.
If I leave you to write the books and you leave me to make them sound as good as they are, then we get a product that is beyond both of our expectations usually. And at that point, that's when true magic happens.
And we don't have to stand over each other's shoulder and that's one thing I will not do. I refuse to micromanage, because if I trust somebody enough to say, here, will you do this, then I have to have the faith that they give me something back that's exceptional. And you do. This is why I don't understand why these people out here don't see they need you, because you make the books come to life in a 30-second ad. And even television commercials can't do that. And I've seen plenty of them. Radio commercials don't do that. I have yet to see a television commercial or a radio commercial that made me want to go out and buy the product, except for two. Matthew McConaughey with the Lincolns, he doesn't have to say a word. He just has to drive the car. That's a powerful commercial. Yes. Ollie agrees. And we have a car dealership down here that uses Labrador Retrievers, and it's the cutest commercial you've ever seen in your life. It's powerful. Makes me want to go out and buy one of their cars. But as a general rule, to me, commercials are boring. Mm-hmm. Yours are not.
Well,
yours are not.
I enjoy being okay. I like to read. I would much rather read a lot of the times than watch the movie about something. Now, I do enjoy watching the movies based off books, but I like reading because you can create the pictures on your own in your head. Nobody else, you're not looking at someone else's version of what this is. You're creating your own version. And that's the same thing I try to bring to the commercials, is I try to build enough of a landscape where your imagination will take over and you'll be able to see everything that I'm trying to convey without, painting a picture for you, essentially.
And you do it, and you do a beautiful, beautiful job. And if people, what a lot of artists don't understand is you have to invest in your craft in order to get something back. And to me, it's worth that investment, because the product that I get back, I'm not going to get from anybody else. No, if I could pay Matthew McConaughey $10,000 to run an ad, but I guarantee you would not be 1/100th as good as what you do. Because
I don't know. Is he taking his shirt off? Because I'm thinking him taking his shirt off is going to probably sell a lot more of whatever it is.
Nah, it's too skinny. But what you do is, like you say, you put yourself in that ad. And putting yourself in that picture, you put the person listening to it in that picture. Because back to the Mad Hatter, I see the cobblestone streets of Whitechapel. I see the carriage going down the cobblestone streets and the horses with their feet clicking against the cobblestone streets. I see the Hatter looking for his prey. I see all of that. I see the fog. Somebody else.
Well, like you said, it's a matter of investing in your craft, and I have. Over the course of 10 years, I've built up a library of somewhere around probably 20 or 30 gigs worth, if not more, of sound effects and instrument pieces where I can go in and tinker with them and create something that is wholly unique and that nobody else is going to have. A lot of the music and stuff that you hear as the backtrack for the commercials I've made for you, I've made myself. I've created myself. The one that you just played for Failure Was Never an Option. That was about 2 to 3 hours of me sitting and, piecing together instrumental pieces to create one, I think, 40 to 50-second music track, and changing pitch and tone and
that took you forever.
Yeah. The writing and the recording my voiceover part of it is usually the simplest and fastest part of it. The thing that always takes me the longest is creating the music tracks myself, because I don't want to ever have somebody come back and say, hey, you used my music, I want to sue. No, and honestly, I'm cheap. I'm not paying anybody to use their music if I don't have to.
Not when you can create beautiful stuff like you create. I mean, that's silly.
It's all of the intros and stuff for my shows over the years, all of the silly commercials that I've made. There's even a track buried in my archive of a Christmas song that was done for the radio station, and it's Zombie Claus is Coming to Town, and like I had to go through and create almost everything. Granted, the lyrics came from a songbook that I had, and I reached out to the writers of that book and said, hey, I would like to record this. Do you have a problem with it? And they said, no, go for it. If you try to sell it, at least give us credit in it. And I've never tried to sell it. It's just kind of a kitschy little thing that around Christmas time I like to play through the network.
So what we need to do, my friend, is we need to, and on your show too, we need to push you doing these beautiful ads, because it is a return on an investment. And if I'm going to invest in my writing, I need to invest in promoting my product. And as an indie author, I have to promote my product. And the same with you. People say, well, X amount of dollars is a lot of money. Well, yeah, it is, but think of it as investing in your future. Get over yourself.
Well, and also, too, like, I can see that someone saying X amount of dollars is a lot of money, but look at the product that you get in return, and this is the point where I will do my own shameless self-promotion. If anyone out there is hearing the show and you have talked to me, the price that I quote you is drastically lower than anywhere else you're going to go to get an ad done. And if you can find it cheaper, I guarantee you the quality is not going to be anywhere near the same as what Yvonne has been getting, because it's just not possible. I already charge way less than what the industry standard for them is. And
not only that, not only do you charge way less, but the finished product is far superior.
Well, and the other thing, too, is one of the big things that I've always done is your commercial is yours. You pay me to create it. I create it, and then I give it to you, and you can do whatever you want with it after that point.
Exactly.
You can pay to have it run on my network. You can hold on to it. You can make a YouTube video on it and promote it yourself. You can try to shop it around to other radio stations and see if they'll play it for you. I don't care what you do with it. You pay me once, and then I'm out of the picture. Once I give you the product, that's it. I'm done. I don't need anything else from you. And that's not always the case with a lot of the other radio stations. When you make an ad with whatever your local affiliate is, they keep the masters for that ad.
Yes,
you can't take an ad that you made on whatever your local market is, take that ad and then try to shop it around anywhere else, because it's their commercial. They made it, regardless of whether or not that you paid for it. It's theirs. They keep it. I don't do that. Your commercial is yours.
They're not going to let you. They're not going to let you have it back either.
It's a very rare instance where you get your commercial. The haunted attraction that I've done ads for. There was one year where he went to one of the big radio stations in Michigan, and he had them help him create an ad. But the problem was, they refused to run it. And because they refused to run it, he got to keep it because he had already paid for it. And they refused to run it because...
Why did they refuse to run it?
Because there was a line, what was it? there was something about dead hookers. Like, it was a haunted attraction, and the dude has a twisted sense of humor. You kind of have to be in that business. And there was a line in there, something about dead hookers, and they couldn't get it past the standards and practices of the radio station. I believe it was a clear channel radio station, and so it didn't, they wouldn't run it because of that. And they were like, well, if you cut this out, we'll run it. And he's like, I don't want to cut that out. That's one of the funnier bits of the commercial. No, I'm not cutting that out.
We have gotten so politically correct. It's sad. It's pitiful.
Well, what was great is he got to keep the commercial, and then he brought it to me and said, hey, Odd, you'll run this, right? And I said, you're damn right I will. I fully support dead hookers on the radio.
Well, tell him if he wants to send it to me, I'll run it at Halloween for him when we run the show in the month of October. That is too funny. But
well, you've heard of the place before too. It's the one that I run on. It's a different commercial now, but it's the commercial that I run that starts off with the emergency broadcast warning.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
that really loud. Yeah, where it sounds like a zombie attack is going on.
Where we got married.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite commercials that I've made for anybody, is because it was so fun to make. You know, it's like you're creating a tiny little short story inside like a minute.
Yes, I remember that one. That's hysterically funny.
And it sounds like the studio that I'm in is being broken into, and zombies are attacking and eating me. And towards the end of it, it's great. I absolutely love it.
And they probably wouldn't run that on regular radio either.
There's no cussing or anything in it. They might. I'm not entirely sure. But they'll charge you an arm and a leg because it's a full minute.
That's true, because how do they charge now? Do they charge by the second, or do they charge by the minute?
I believe they charge by the minute, and then they charge you by when the commercial runs. What real estate you're buying or you want on the radio. So like
drive home time early morning.
Yeah, a late night commercial will usually be fairly cheaper as opposed to like primetime slot during like the drive time or anything like that. You know, you're going to pay a lot more for it because they figure more people are going to listen. What I've always thought was crazy too is that if any of you out there are listening and are thinking about advertising on mainstream radio, I want you to understand this. They have absolutely no idea and no way to honestly track how many people are listening to their station. There is no magical device that tracks how many car radios or how many home stereos have switched on to their broadcast.
We do.
So when they start trying to charge you and telling you, well, we have X number of listeners, I want you to look them straight in their face and say, I know that's bullshit. I know you have no way to track it. You're spitballing based on the radius of your antenna's power.
That's true. That is very, very true. But
me, on the other hand, I can't tell you exactly how many listeners you get.
Yep, and as I can, because we get those numbers every day.
Yep. Well, mine comes to me once a month, but yeah.
That's true.
I think I'd go crazy if I was sitting there watching the numbers every single day.
Oh, I pull them every day because mine roll over every day. And plus I've got 5 other podcasts that I put the show up on. You know this thing's an international show now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
As is mine. Well, see, the beauty of mine is, like, even if they're downloaded for one... Go ahead.
I'm up to 46 countries.
There was a thing a while back that I was able to put up and show, and I hit every single country in the world. Every single country in the world was listening to my radio station and my show at that time. And it was a great...
And this is why folks need to let you run their ads on your show and let you produce their ads on your show, because it's so worth it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, he runs my ads on his show. He has a 3-hour show, and he runs my ads, and I'm telling you, it is worth the investment.
I try to make sure that, like I said, I try to price myself so I'm competitive enough that I don't slit my own throat, but I'm also making it easier and cheaper for the independent business owner. You know, I'm right there with you. I know what it's like to have to put yourself out there every single time you want to try and get noticed or get your work noticed. You know, I understand what it's like to be a prostitute because I am constantly selling myself on a regular basis.
Christopher!
What?
But
it's true.
But, Chris, your time is worth something, too. Your time is valuable. And just like you said, it took, 2 or 3 hours just to put the music together for a 1-minute ad for Dreamcatcher. Well, not only is that your time, but it is your talent, it is your craft, and it's worth the money that I spend to buy that time.
Yvonne, if I charged what I thought I was worth, even Donald Trump himself wouldn't be able to afford it.
Well, I tend to agree with you because I feel the same way about me. In fact, I told this guy, my husband and I were in Ketchikan, Alaska, and we were walking out of this little boy. Now, it's a little fishing village, and the houses are up on the side of the mountain, and we had finished drinking, and we were getting ready to walk out the bar. Jack had already walked out, and I was waiting on him to wrap up the souvenir glass I bought. And as I walked out the door, one of the little fishermen, he's a kid, cute little kid, said, "Boy, I wish I had that swing in my backyard." And I turned around and very quietly and very southernly said, "Honey, you cannot afford me." Broke the bar up. Everybody in the bar fell out of their bar stools. They thought
I love it.
See, and that's how I feel. If I charged what I was worth, nobody'd be able to afford it. And honestly, I enjoy doing it. So I'm being paid not only in monetary form, but I'm also being paid in the joy of actually putting this together. I don't hurt for the prices that I charge, basically. You know, it
pays our studio head cost.
Yeah, it pays the overhead for my studio, and that's perfectly fine with me. I get to hide away for 3-4 hours and dive into my own little world and make this beautiful little piece and send it out into the world and get to see how happy it makes not only the person who purchased it, but I get to hear the return also, you know, like you, the person that heard the ad immediately went out and bought the book. That's the goal. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make commercials that make people feel that they can't live without whatever I'm trying to sell them.
And you do it so very well because I can't wait to see what you do with the rest of them.
Once the studio's back up and running, I'll be starting to knock that back out. Like I said, my favorite one right now is the one for the short stories, just because I was able to get into character. It's like I've gone back and listened to it, and there are inflections in there that I don't normally use in you know, anything, whether it's an ad or just speaking in general, and it's just a really fun voice to play with, and I actually want to do more with that setting on my mixer because I think it'd be fun.
And you can only do it when you first wake up of the day.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is like for some of the horror books and everything like that, I love the 80s horror movies, and I love the 80s like trailers, and that really rough and gravelly. Like what was used for Pink Canary?
I don't remember what you used for Canary.
Well, you played it at the beginning of the show. It's more of a froggy sounding deep voice, and I only have that first thing in the morning. When I wake up in the morning, the first few words that come out of my mouth sound like they're struggling to get through gravel.
I'm going to play Welcome because we both love it so much. So hold on a minute, because after that one we'll have to end the show. But hold on.
Horror enthusiasts, enthusiasts and fans of things that go bump in the night, rejoice, as there is a new collection of creepy tales to keep your spine tingling and your blood running cold. The brainchild of prolific author Yvonne Mason. Welcome to Your Nightmare is an anthology of stories from a gifted batch of writers specializing in keeping you up at night. Whether you love gruesome tales of murder and mayhem, or you prefer quaint tales of scary happenings, welcome to Your Nightmare is sure to please the inner psychopath and whet even the most insatiable horror appetite. Welcome to Your Nightmare is available now on Amazon.com.
See, it's an amazing ad. Makes me want to run out and buy the book.
That's the goal.
Absolutely.
But I'll tell you what, if any of your listeners are catching this show and are interested in talking to me about pricing and everything, understand that the price I quote you, that's the price, but that doesn't mean you have to necessarily pay it all up front. I'm really good about working with the customer and fitting it into what they can afford, even if it takes you 3-4 months to get it paid off. I don't care, as long as you're willing to keep paying on it until it's paid off, that's fine by me. But if you're interested, you can get a hold of me at odd@madworldradio.com.
And also, if you're not already his friend on Facebook, he's listed on my Facebook friends as Christopher Dunham. Hook up with him, because I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, you won't be sorry. I've known this man forever, and he is an absolutely amazingly gifted, talented artist, because what you do is art. It is a form of art.
So.
Yeah, not everybody can do what you do and do it effectively and efficiently and as well as you do it. Believe it or not, we have come to the end of our line. And before they cut us off, I want to say thank you for being my friend. Thank Ollie for being my friend. I love you both very, very much. And one day I might get to Kentucky.
Yay.
Or we might get to Florida, whichever happens first.
There you go. And you got a room here.
I know.
And
I want to go to Florida. We haven't had a honeymoon yet.
all right, then, come to Florida. It'll be fun, they said. But I appreciate you so much. I appreciate both of you because y'all have been there through some of my darkest days. And, Chris, you've been there through some of my darkest days. And
likewise.
Your friendship is one of the most special things in my life.
Oh, it's special, all right.
Your ability to make me laugh even when they disagree is something not many people can do. And for you to spend an hour with me and let me pimp you makes me happy.
I'd rather I wouldn't rather have any other pimp in the world, Yvonne.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, understand, I'm Chris Dunham's pimp. So you have to, when he gets his show back up and running, you got to go listen to it. And I want you to come back on the show because we didn't even get into half of what I wanted to talk about tonight. So I'm going to set you up to come back on the show.
That's fine. Anytime, any place.
Sooner than later.
Because we still have your book to talk about. I mean, we got so many things. We got the show to talk about. We got so many things to talk about. But I thought tonight it was so important to talk about your craft and how important it is in this industry that I am in and my fellow indie authors are in, and movie makers and musicians and business people. They need someone like you. They don't know it yet, but they do. So on that note, my friend, I'm going to close the show and get this thing up in archives so that I can tag you in it, and then in the morning I'll put it up on all the podcasts, and I'll tag you in all the podcasts, and we'll get you out there. And before you know it, you're going to have so much work, you're going to say, Yvonne, stop sending me people.
Man, that'd be nice. If I didn't actually have to have a real 9-to-5 like everybody else, that's the dream. But until that point, I'm just a working schlub like everybody else. Well,
let's push towards that dream. Let's make your dream happen, because I'm a believer in fulfilling dreams. I've fulfilled a few in my life, and I've helped others fulfill theirs. And let's fulfill yours. Let's make it happen.
Hey, I'm all for it. If anyone else is interested, too, let me take one last chance to promote myself. You can find Mad World Radio Network on TuneIn Radio. You can also find it at madworldradio.com. We are a 24/7 radio station. There is always something playing. Usually it's nothing but indie music from all over the nation. But we also do rerun old episodes of Mad World Radio. You can catch my live show, Friday Night Freak Show, through there as well. And you can also go to FridayNightFreakShow.com to see what we got on the website.
And
we're listed on Google Play and iTunes and everywhere. Pretty much everywhere you can find Yvonne's show, you can find mine as well.
Absolutely. And you'll let us all know when you get back up and running, right?
Yep, I will.
All right, my darling. I will talk to you later. Thank you for you and Ollie spending an hour with me. I appreciate you both so much.
No problem, Yvonne. It's been a pleasure for us as well.
All right, and I'm going to set you up to come back on in a couple of months.
I'll be there.
All right, darling. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Night, Ollie.
Good night.
Later.
Georgia's Bank scallops are now at Bonefish Grill. The Georgia's Bank off the coast of New England is known for its amazing sea scallops, and Bonefish prepares them just right. Grilled to perfection over a wood fire, served atop creamy Parmesan risotto, and finished with bacon. They're a scallop lover's dream, and they pair perfectly with a seasonal handcrafted cocktail like our Wild Orchid Hawaiian Martini. So don't miss out. Come in and try Georgia's Bank scallops at Bonefish Grill tonight.